Hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Educational AD podcast, this time featuring the FIAAA Insider. Our guest today is a good friend, Steve Ripley. Steve's a certified master athletic administrator. He's had a long career in the state of Florida. He's been a member of our board. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, as you know, Steve, athletic directors are busy, so we're just going to jump right into it. Tell our listeners a little bit about you, where you grew up, where you went to school. Let them get to know Steve Ripley.
Well, I mainly grew up in Florida. Spent a little time in Georgia in my middle school freshman years, but I went to high school down in Miami at Archbishop Curley High School. I finished up there the last 3 years and played baseball. Even played a year of soccer there. Went on to Biscayne College, which is now St. Thomas University, right there in Miami. And there I played a year of baseball and then messed up my shoulder and finished up my career playing soccer last 3 years. I played soccer for them. And then I was on the 5-year plan instead of the 4. That's okay. I had a great time. And then went on and got my first job right there in Miami at Pace High School.
Okay. Well, tell us about, that career path, how that first job, led to the next job and eventually got you onto a path of being an athletic administrator.
Well, I first started off teaching religion, believe it or not, and then did a little coaching. When you come out of college, whatever coaching spots are available. As a young person, I took it. I coached football. A little bit of baseball, but I mainly was a basketball coach. I spent most of my career coaching basketball at Pace High School, where I got my first job. At a college, I took over the girls basketball program, and then I was there for 3 years. Moved up to the Fort Pierce area, and then coached at John Carroll, Port Lucie High School. I taught at those places as well, and then when I went to the public school route, I taught math and coached mainly basketball. And then Centennial, I coached basketball. And then the last 12 years, I've been an athletic director. I just retired 2 weeks ago. But anyway, the last 12 years, I was an athletic director. So 8 years of those were at John Carroll Catholic High School. In fact, that's where you and I first met, because you were at Palmer Trinity down south. And then I finished up my last 4 years at Centennial High School as an athletic director.
Now, we always talk about the importance of leadership and mentoring the next generation. Who are some of your mentors, growing up, coaches, people you work for, who really had an impact on your career as a teacher, as an educator, as a leader?
When I was at Curley, I played baseball, like I said, and George Barquette was my head coach, who was respected by a lot of people during that time, just the way he treated us as high school young men, building relationships, those type of things. And then as I carried on, my mentor, when I was coaching basketball at Port Lucie High School, the baseball coach, Tony Malaysia, was a great mentor just by his work ethic. He wasn't going to get outworked. I kind of was driven that way. Most head coaches are usually driven that way anyway. We're not going to get outworked, but that was one of those people I looked up to, just because he was willing to put the extra time in Saturdays where maybe some people were sleeping. The athletes were out playing, and of course mine kind of followed suit with that. And for the athletic administrator side, you know him very well, Dan Neinstein, the athletic director of Port Lucie High School. He got me involved with some other activities on campus, event management type things, and announcing and selling tickets and security, all the little jobs we give other people. He'd make sure I was a part of that. And then he said, if you become an aspiring AD, and as soon as I became one, he said, you need to start going to the state conference, national conference. I ended up, as you've already mentioned, I ended up on the board. I represent the FIAAA, our Coaches Association, on the FIAAA board, and I really haven't looked back. I've been very thankful that I got that advice, and And then you got to take it, you take the advice and you got to go and put your own footprint on every little step you take. And I think I've done that. So.
Oh, absolutely. You mentioned we crossed paths when you were at John Carroll. Let's talk a little bit about that. You know, you started at Pace, John Carroll, you know, a little bit smaller school. You know, you finished up at St. Lucie West, you know, big public high school. What are some of the challenges, you know, being an athletic administrator at say, a smaller school versus a bigger school? And then, you know, obviously bigger school, you have more people to deal with, more programs, but how is it different working at a smaller school?
Obviously, actually we had like 400 students at John Carroll, and I had like 700 athletes at Centennial, 800, even 2,400, not dollar, 2,400 student body. But if there's any differences, when I was a smaller school, you basically kind of doing everything on your own. I didn't have a secretary. Centennial, I had a secretary, so I was able to obviously get some help there, which helped me with some things that I implemented at the bigger school. You know, there was some similarities. Athletes are athletes, and they have the same needs on both campuses, whether it's private or public. We had about the same amount of teams. I had lacrosse at John Carroll. I didn't have it at Centennial, but we had flag football. So there's some things. Of course, flag football is a little bit easier to oversee than lacrosse for many reasons. That's for a different day. But there was a lot of similarities. The athletes were, they embraced what we put into place at Centennial. We added a academic code of conduct contract. I felt it was needed. Principal gave me carte blanche to do that. Coaches bought into it, and you know, my relationship I built with the coaches were the same as when I was at the private school. So differences were the size of people, paperwork. You know, more athletes, more paperwork. So played off campus for football. There was some challenges there, but when you work with, we had a great relationship with Parks and Rec, so it ended up working out. You know, once I got used to what that process was.
You've touched a little bit on various jobs of athletic administration that don't get seen. You know, there's that famous saying about coaches and ADs that everybody wants our jobs on Friday night, you know, when the lights are bright, but nobody wants it during the week. Nobody wants it on the weekends or summers. What are some of the things that you've seen change over the years as far as the duties of an athletic director? You've had a long career, and even going back to, you know, when you were an athlete, how's the job changed for today's athletic director from just say the last 10, 15 years?
One of the things is we're being held to be more accountable. Paperwork, liability issues, our athletic packet, even in the last 4 years at Centennial, the athletic packets of both schools were very similar. You know, there's a bullying page and there's a harassment page, those type of things. But what they've added, even now, the last couple of months, now we've got a virus waiver, parents. So you know, I think the paperwork is what it is. But it seems to have increased the last couple of years, and that makes it a little bit heavier on us. I think parents have become a stronger issue. My parents stayed out of my business and let the coach do their job. Unfortunately, I feel that there's more we always had parents like that, but it seems like that has increased. People want to step in where they really don't belong. I don't mean a parent doesn't belong in their child's life, their athlete's life, but there's more of them that are willing to give their opinion that doesn't seem to, you know, it's taken away from letting the coach do their job. I've seen coaches decide, I've got to go. I can't do this anymore. And we're not talking because of their age. You know, and the other challenge we have, Jake, to be honest with you, is finding coaches that are driven like when you and I were coaching. You know, and a lot of us were coaching that are willing to put the extra time into it. We do that as ADs. The hours are what they are. whatever, how many hours you want to put in a week, depends on how many sports you got going on. But I've had a little bit of a difficult time finding coaches that are not necessarily don't do a bad job during the year, but a lot of sports are year round, staying involved with their athletes and communication skills and things like that. That's why I lost my hair, I think.
I've seen those pictures of you. We had similar hairstyles back in the college days. And you made a real good point earlier. When I hate to say this, but when you and I graduated from college, if you were said, hey, we need a baseball coach, and you didn't know anything about baseball, hey, you were going to coach baseball because you wanted to coach, you wanted to teach, you wanted to be involved in that career. Nowadays it's just so common talking to a young, fresh out of college. What do you mean JV coach? I'm a varsity coach, and it is very challenging, as you said, to find people that want to work hard and do things that you just got to do. Let's go ahead and shift gears from some of the challenges to some of the favorite things. And again, you're retiring, but looking back on your time at John Carroll, your time at St. Lucie West, what got you up in the morning? What got you excited about coming into school? Give us your top 4 or 5 things that made it fun to come to work each day.
Well, when I was coaching, I kind of did the same thing as an AD. I thought it was very important to build positive relationships with the athletes. I mean, doesn't matter whether they were your top player or that role player. And I've really taken that same approach as an athletic administrator. Every sport is important. I think it's kind of leading, and I enjoyed getting up in the morning, even in the last couple of days when I knew I was done. I enjoyed going on campus and communicate with my coaches, and especially if I knew they had a tough game the night before, I was kind of searching them out to see if they're okay. Because if your coaches are driven and they care, then they're hurting a little bit, and also to help celebrate if something, they pulled an upset or those kind of things. But, as an athletic director, sometimes you could get away with being involved with the athletes, and I took a lot of pride in staying involved with them. I didn't let the paperwork and those things that we have to take care of get in the way. And I look forward to that. And I tell you, especially the last couple of years, signing day became a big treat. Even during this epidemic we've been through, we did a virtual signing for our last two baseball players and 2 basketball players, and only parents could be there. But we did a Zoom thing, and all the players they couldn't be there, but the teammates were part of the Zoom, and we made the best of the situation on their most important day, get ready to move on to the next. We just took a lot of pride on both campuses of making sure those athletes that were supposed to move on, we celebrated with them. I don't know if that's leading towards your answer. I'm hoping that you're looking for, but those kind of got me excited even to the last couple of days here. So
we've had a very elite group of ADs that we've spoken to, including you, and every single one has said the same thing. It's activities involving the kids, being involved with the kids. You mentioned COVID. Let's go and talk about that. What were some things that, well, you mentioned the virtual signing. We did those activities as well. What are some things that are going on right now in your district with regards to summer workouts and return to play in the fall? You and I both know Florida's, there is no norm. It's up to the individual school district. So what are some things that y'all are doing right now with your kids and your coaches?
Well, I'm in St. Lucie County, so we have like 6 public schools that, but we worked with the other counties around us. We would meet every Thursday for the last month, Zoom call at noon, the 4-county area, and all the ADs, whether you had football or not, we all met and we fed off each other suggestions. What is your school district doing? What are they allowing you to do? At my school in our county, we chose to wait till the 22nd of June to start, and we were in phase one, and we stayed in phase one. Of course, we didn't know at the time what the state was going to do, but we stayed in phase one until this coming Monday, July 6th. Phase one is a challenge, and they wouldn't allow us. We have a huge property that we could have separated, and kids would have never crossed paths, but they stuck to only allowing us to have 10, which included the coach, outside no matter what, just 10. So football had to stagger their time. They did their linemen on campus, and then they did the skilled kids as a third party at a Parks and Rec field, followed their protocol, which wasn't as strict as our school districts, but they still followed it. And we made sure they all had their paperwork in. Videos included, that waiver I mentioned earlier in the conversation. Basketball then came in after football. They used the weight room, 10 in the weight room, included coach, 10 in the gym, and that was it. And they staggered that and girls basketball later. Volleyball chose to, with club volleyball being so strong, our coach has a gym. She's a club coach and club director. So they went to a some kind of weight gym. They paid, the kids paid. So, here's the policies. If you want to follow them, here's what we're allowed to do on campus. Coaches are very respectful to that, did a great job of staying on top of it. We provide the sprays and the wipes and the thermometers. And of course, they check the kids like you're supposed to when they walk down on campus. We gave them advice. I said, when they walk up to campus, you may want to go and put them in a cool spot first, because otherwise it's going to read what you don't want it to read. And they don't really have that temperature. So I had my own Zoom meetings with my coaches once a week, or maybe every couple of weeks as we were getting organized. They got real detailed. I made them get real detailed so they get approved. I didn't want the county to come back and say, nope, not approved. That kind of things. I wanted to start it and not have to get pulled back or make them stop it during the summer. Our county we had an area superintendent pop by to make sure we were doing the right thing, which we don't care, because we made sure we pushed it, do it the right thing, so you don't have to be forced to stop. So now we're just waiting to hear what the state's going to approve. As you know, the other day there was a task force that recommended starting fall practices on the 10th of August. I guess the FIAAA board's got to vote on that. And so my personal opinion, I don't think it's a bad idea. The kids have been missing at conditioning for 2 months, unless they did something on their own, which a lot of the kids were doing, depends on the programs. And they still have the same as an adult being there, driving them the right direction to do it properly. And I think, especially football, they need that time to do things, to get it right, but depending on what they're going to be allowed to do on game night. And, so that's a scary thought, because we don't know what the state's going to finally approve and what phase we're going to be in. I hope it's phase 3, because it sure is a lot easier to deal with than phase 1 or 2. So.
Yeah, I was talking with some ADs the other day, and a couple of states have already come out and said they're canceling fall sports, or and it just seems so premature to do that. If you delay, it's still, when you do start, week 1 is still week 1 for everybody. And so
right.
It's not.
And I think that if all the football coaches are made to play 8 instead of 10, they'll be okay with it if everybody's on the same page.
Especially if it's 8 versus 0, which is a possibility.
Right. Well, some high schools in Florida have already canceled their fall sports.
Mm-hmm.
But that's their choice. And especially the private schools, I think that they're making that decision. I know of one private school that did, but
right.
I haven't heard much. I heard others are considering it, or maybe moving it to the spring.
I've only heard in Florida, I've only heard of the one school that has canceled fall sports entirely. But I think the task force was a good idea, and let's see if that recommendation comes through. Let's still stay on current events. This late spring, We saw, tremendous impact with social issues with regard to athletes and athletics. From your position, what are some things that we can do as leaders, as athletic directors, to help promote, positive social interactions?
I think I feel fortunate in our community. It wasn't as negative, if that's the right word, as maybe other communities, even in Florida, as we've seen. I think it's important that our coaches listen to the athletes that are involved in that or involved. I think that's we should be good listeners anyway. I think this is a very important part, that there's a platform, there's a correct way of using a platform to express things that need to be listened to. I feel, I don't want to say, when I was out of school, I feel blessed that our coaches are good about that and being, if they've built good relationships that the young kids, they're young men and ladies now as they get older, but I think listening is a very important part. I only posted one thing. I'm not real big on doing that, but I just know in my 40 plus years, there's been some great people in law enforcement and coaches and you name it, a line of work out there that I've worked with that they're not an indication of some of the negative that's out there. And it's unfortunate. What's noticed right now is the very small percentage that represents those line of work. And I think that's important for us to express or being part of when we're communicating with our student athletes and our coaches. I just think we're in a tough time now, and the more positive we can see on social media that the kids can see, the better. Hopefully that'll sink into them a little bit. We've got to
I think you hit it on the head. Listening, just so critical. We're coming to the end of the program, and we always like to end with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. I'm going to ask you to create a toolbox for a brand new athletic director, and you only get to put 3 things in that toolbox. What 3 things are going to go in Steve Ripley's new AD toolbox?
Get to know your coaches. It's a communication tool. It's a big piece of communicating. In fact, I already shared with the person who replaced me that when I took the job there, I met individually with each head coach and allowed them to express their concerns or positive things, wants versus needs. I think we got to be careful of that because now the budget's going to get, second item is, are you going to be able to adjust to a budget that's going to be cut? Ours is going to be cut 25%. And I think that's important for the ADs to be able to, especially if they're young, to obviously we may not be able to get some things. You may not be able to spend money like we were able to in the past. And maybe the third thing is, what are we going to do about the
We lost your audio there, Steve. Steve, we lost your audio there real quick.
afford to be able to pay that fee, and hopefully he won't have to cut back, or a new AD won't have to cut back on that situation, because then the student athletes lose out.
Well, Steve, it's just been great having you on. Again, you're a dear friend, and I'll actually see you next week on our FIAAA Zoom meeting for our annual meeting. I'm going to wish you all the best in the retirement, but I know I'm going to be seeing you. And thanks again for being on the podcast today.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always great spending time with you, Jake.
Okay. Well, Thanks to everyone for listening. Please listen next Monday when John Scromolo will be our guest. John was the athletic director at Riverview High School. Now he's the district AD, and he'll be able to share some things with us. So for Steve Ripley and the Educational AD, everybody have a great day.